You're listening to Accounting for Growth, the podcast where growth leaders in accounting go beyond referrals alone and think bigger. I'm Chad Person, your host and the founder and president of Accounting CMO. Each episode, we bring in experts at the edge of accounting innovation to share quick, actionable insights that help you lead with confidence, drive smart growth, and move your firm forward. Let's dive in. Well, hello, everyone. And again, welcome back to Accounting for Growth and our Managing Partner Reality series. This episode is about kind of the side of growth most leaders feel, but many of them don't always say out loud. And that is, hey, costs are up, talent is expensive, and not all growth is good growth. I think a lot of folks struggle with that. Dawn Howard is back to join me and help me unpack how firms protect margin while still investing in growth and moving forward. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you, Chad.
Yeah. So again, these are all, the essence behind this podcast was you and I kind of pulling our heads together and thinking through all of the relationships that we've got today with clients and firms and the experiences of knowing what's on the minds of many managing partners. This one here is an interesting one. It's really kind of about the pressures, right, that exist in operating a firm today, and how you kind of navigate through the pressures. Everything from the inflation in salary due to the lack of talent and all the changes that have happened, frankly, and since COVID. I mean, all of the things that go into protecting your profits, but also managing cost pressures as well. So lots to unpack. Please begin.
I think for me, when I was preparing for this particular podcast, I think the word that jumped out at me is very simple, and it's communication. So if you're a managing partner, you're in the leadership group, whatever it might be, I absolutely guarantee that all of these things that you just mentioned, the margin concerns, what have you, are in your head.
Yep.
And you may have ideas, you may be having oh crap moments, whatever it might be, but being able to unpack those out of your head, get these in a conversation with your fellow leaders and saying, okay, this is a true problem. We cannot put our head in the sand and expect it's just going to get better. It's just the nature of the beast with our business. And so, well, what does that mean? What are we truly going to put a plan around as far as how we are addressing margin issues? And, I'm not sure that most firms think about realization until after the fact. Yep. And when you're talking about protecting your margin and you're looking at the billable hour and what you're collecting, after the fact is too late. So, as you're going forward and you're looking at your engagements, I mean, this is on every client service person to be able to do and also look at, and while this may not be truly an efficiency conversation, it needs to factor in is everybody's got a seat in the boat on this one. Right. So being able to say, okay, wow, we are killing our margin on this because of X, and here's what I think we can how we can fix it. So being able to be in a room, regardless of your level, and say, my hand's raised because I see a problem.
Yeah, no, well put. And I'm aligned with all that. I think to add maybe a little to it is just to kind of, again, I'll key back to some of our previous episodes where, we look at the realities of our profession today and the talent shortage and how that's impacted the competitiveness of not only finding but keeping that talent, and how that's impacted salaries, et cetera. You look at other impacts in our profession around technology, right? And there's an investment in technology, but there's also a net positive impact on capacity if leveraged right. And this all, I guess what I'm trying to get at is this all still goes back to strategy. It all still goes back to understanding like how you want to grow and being strategic in decisions and people, process, pricing, how you go to market. At the end of the day, this shift, again, that most firms are wanting to make to be more advisory and moving maybe away from the lower fee, the compliance work where it makes sense, moving away from that. Again, this is about being strategic and knowing where you're going and not just simply saying, well, I need to cut costs. That in and of itself isn't a strategy.
Correct. And I smiled when you said the know where you're going, because it ties back to a prior conversation we had that refers back to, well, know where you're going, you have to know where you are.
Yeah.
And I would submit to you that there are plenty of firms that can't tell you where they are or who
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about that and the positioning of who are we, I think that kind of drives a lot of activity related to who are we going after,
Sure.
what does that staffing look like, et cetera, et cetera. And so being able to do that, that having that strong positioning of who we actually are, again, this is when we bring in marketing so that we can articulate that to the marketplace.
Yep.
But I would tell you that being specific about that also allows you to bring in higher fees potentially, because you're not a generalist, right? We
Right.
When we talk about who we are, is that you're a nonprofit specialist. Well,
Right.
that's going to put you above another firm in which they aren't able to say that.
Yeah.
So, I think I go back, this communication piece, the understanding of this is who we are now, here's who we want to be in 2 years, and here's how we get there, I think is a really strong point that is missed
Yes.
for a lot of firms.
Yeah, no, great. I love where your head's at. I mean, this idea of pricing and the power, the power pricing power starts long before the proposal is being created, right? And what you're suggesting, right? This positioning and the opportunity to be differentiating in the marketplace based upon specialized knowledge, whatever it might be. And yeah, that's 100% right. And I think again, getting marketing involved on the front end to drive opportunities for differentiation. Honestly, getting them involved not just in pulling together a proposal and making sure that it looks the way it should and representative of your firm, but having them ensure that they're working with partners to understand what outcomes your potential client is looking to achieve and translating that in the proposal to value, right? A
Right.
value around the investment they're making. And honestly, um, I've seen marketing create great value in the scoping process as well. I think oftentimes realization or poor realization doesn't necessarily always equate back to mishaps on the job. It can actually simply be poor scoping on the front end.
Yeah.
And yeah, so again, lots of ways for marketing to help at least provide frameworks, if not deliberately participate in that process.
Well, and to that end, I think about the lost track of how many proposals I've been involved with over my 20 plus years, but um, that can help greatly with positioning and, dare I say, differentiation
Yep.
in the marketplace, right? And I know we sleep on proposals because we've probably all seen 95-page proposals, and who the heck's going to read through all that? But there are just a variety of different ways when you're looking at how do we protect our margin,
Mm,
um, to be able to not just have it be a frontline partner who helps protect it. They're like, get
yeah.
other people in the boat with you as you're pursuing some of these clients.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, again, marketing's role in a lot of this is as you suggested. I mean, that clear messaging really, you know, not only in that proposal, but well ahead of that proposal on how we're going to market and presenting our value and offering. I mean, that clear messaging reduces discount. Obviously, better fit clients. Back to that, having an ideal client profile. The better fit the client is, the better the margins, typically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think marketing should have a role in expectation setting in terms of how we go to market, how we scope work, how we price. I know that's traditionally not where many firms have been, but increasingly, I think I'm seeing firms move in that direction. At the end of the day, underselling value is one of the key margin killers, right? It's always not
Yeah.
always about how you deliver on the job. It begins in the very beginning, how you scope and price that work.
Yeah, one other thing I think about is firms of a certain size. It's growth, growth, growth. It's, all the time it's growth, not necessarily looking at that profitability factor of what truly happens when you bring in a client like this.
Yeah,
And so I think, again, it goes back to the communication. It goes back to we're not responding to every RFP because we will go upside down on this sooner than later.
yeah,
So, is there a systematic approach when an RFP comes in so that someone, and not at the last minute, is looking at, and I've certainly seen this, and I know you probably have too, Chad, where the managing partner is signing off on it 2 hours before it's due. Well, that's
yeah,
way too late to have that conversation.
yep,
So,
yep.
but this is a busy crowd, right? Like, I get it. And I remember being brought into proposals at the last hour like any other solid marketing person, and so
Yeah. Yep. No,
talk about it sooner than later, I guess.
absolutely. Absolutely. Be as proactive as you can. Often a challenge, but certainly a best practice we want to pursue. So let's shift to kind of this notion of short-term versus long-term decisions. And I guess what I'm thinking about is you know making sure that you even when margins are thin, even when there's uncertainty oftentimes in recent years in the economy, et cetera, not freezing innovation or investments in growth, right?
Yeah.
I think that's something that I think I've seen a firm or two over the last few years react in that fashion, and my concern is that it certainly will put them at it's short sighted. It will put them at a disadvantage long term, because I don't have to tell you, and we've talked about it a number of times. There are there have never been more opportunities to invest practically, economically in technology and drive efficiency than there is today, right?
Agreed. And I would tell you, clients are expecting
Mm,
that you are,
yeah,
because they are expecting that you have built in this efficiency with your technology. And that's not a price they're willing to pay.
right,
So
right.
when you potentially, as we have talked about earlier, have a price increase conversation coming up, I can absolutely see where a client may say, well, we're kind of expecting that you have the technology, you've made that investment to
Yep,
help with the efficiency of our work.
yep,
So, I mean, a little bit of saying sounds like a you problem.
yep, yeah,
So I think it's not just, oh, we've got to stay with make sure we have the latest software widget or whatever it might be.
right.
It's the marketplace is expecting that you are.
Yeah, there's no question. Again, I think some of the larger firms have made maybe more strides in this area, but because of that, it's going to continue to trickle down to some of the smaller firms. And uh, what I'm speaking to is this notion of the client experience, and we're kind of talking around that. I think in that, it's how your people, your processes, and your technology work together to serve clients, and that client experience begins in the sales process, right? It begins with how we collaborate and the questions that we ask, the information that we gather, and that proposal that we present, and the onboarding, and on and on. And so my point is that you know every firm should be taking a step back today and evaluating those three elements and how they work together. Because I'm telling you with great certainty, not only are competitors making investments in those areas, smart investments,
Sure.
leveraging expertise to make those investments, but at the same time, you've got your buyers, as you've suggested, are expecting these changes. It's just all the innovation and technology they experience in other parts of their life, they're going to expect that in practically every part of their life eventually. And so keeping your eye on that, not stopping investments in uncertain times, or stopping investments in that type of innovation due to trying to drive better margins. That's short term. And again, we would advise against that. Yes.
Yes. And, the other thing that jumped to mind while you were talking is the talent piece of it, the talent retention and recruitment, because nobody wants to work for a dusty firm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And people talk like it doesn't take much to figure out that, well, firm A is just not making this investments in innovation for us to even keep up. So me as a 25-year-old, do I want to stay here? And it's not even necessarily going from a small firm to a big four or whatever it might be. It's more from the standpoint of, are we at least keeping up with the time?
Sure.
And there's no like Gen Z that wants to necessarily work for a firm that's not.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about the innovation piece of it, and if you've got to make an investment, which more than likely you will,
Yeah.
there are so many factors that come into that when you're looking at your return on investment.
Yes.
Certainly, I don't have a number of how a technology spend, what's the percentage of being able to retain your talent or your likelihood of recruitment at the college level, but it's there. Because social media these days, it's very easy to find information and a Reddit thread on it or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And so understanding as a leader, what is our reputation in the marketplace, and do we want to be on the cutting edge?
Yeah.
We want to be in the muddy middle. That's okay, but we don't want to be at the bottom.
Right. Yep. No, agreed, 100%. So closing this down, Don, is there, for folks or for managing partners, for executive teams that are faced with frankly all of these priorities and also the need to protect their margins and improve them. Any first steps, any key KPIs, anything you want to kind of leave with them as advice as we close in here?
Talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we live in a vacuum, and I'm certainly guilty. I've been around accountants for the past 20 years. They're guilty of
Yeah.
just saying, okay, I'm keeping my head down. I'm doing this. Yeah, I saw this. I'm not going to bring it forward until June 1st. And then you forget about it. And that's
Yeah.
the end of it. So
Yeah.
what is the forum that, we talk about accountability all the time. What is the forum that a frontline partner, director, whoever it might be, can bring forward some of these concerns
Yeah.
and maybe solutions? You got a lot of smart people. You hired smart people for a reason.
Sure.
Use
Yeah.
them for more than just their tax return or the audit or whatever it might be. So
Yeah.
getting it out on the table, compiling it somewhere, and deciding who will help hold whoever accountable. And I'm a big believer in paper. I write everything down. So however you want to encapsulate that. But otherwise, if you don't, you absolutely will have this conversation again at the same time next year.
Yeah. Yeah. Great points, Don. For me, I mean, communication, you're right. Get it out there on the table, talk through it. And for me, again, it goes always back to this notion of clarity and when you have consensus and a clear vision for the firm you want to become, then everything that you make decisions on regarding how to manage, practice management, how to manage growth needs to be looked at through that lens. The
Right.
investments and how you price, the investments and the services you deliver, the people, the process, the technology that accompany it, all of that should be tied back to that vision and the plan for growth. And again, when you have those foundations in place, it gives you the right, I think, forum to get it on the table, talk
Mhm.
about it, and make smarter decisions on where your priorities are today and how you can ensure that your firm stays healthy today without jeopardizing your future, right?
Yep. Agree.
So, hey, thank you so much, as always, Don, for your input.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chad.
So I think we've talked today about how growth doesn't improve profitability when it's not strategic, right? When it's not strategic, it becomes stressful. And so important to keep that in mind. Our next episode, we'll close out this series and we'll talk about succession and leadership readiness, which certainly is a key ingredient to sustainable success. Really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks again to Don. And until next time, please keep accounting for growth. That's a wrap on this episode of Accounting for Growth, powered by your CMO. We help accounting leaders break the status quo. Please subscribe, share, and stay sharp. Your next big growth move starts now.